Good evening. I'm Marty Owings, and we're at the Capitol tonight. We're going to talk to Representative Ron Kresha, and could tell the viewers what district and maybe cities and towns you represent.
Sure. I represent 9B, and in the center of my district is Little Falls. It reaches Motley on the north, Royalton on the south, all the way over to Long Prairie on the west, and Piers on the east.
Okay, yeah, that covers a lot of ground. And so you're an assistant majority leader in the Republican. I should mention that you're a Republican, and you also sit on various education committees, like education innovation for one. And you've carried some bills that, and I know you've spoken publicly regarding broadband access and internet access for students.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what level, what kind of students you're talking about, what kind of access?
Sure. So my background is in education and technology, and one of the things that I have seen is the lack of accessibility for students in the rural areas, as well as in the metro that may have a poverty issue and just may not be able to afford access. So one of the innovative things that we came up this year when the Ed Finance bill is we've allocated $7 million that will allow us to get mobile hotspots out to homes that don't have access. And these hotspots are going to be a great way to get technology right to the kids' home so that this homework gap, this gap where they're leaving school and then they get home, they can't get their homework done between the next day, we can eliminate that now and we can actually get access for these students. So I'm very proud of that. I think it's going to really help our achievement gap as well as get these students really caught up in this digital homework age.
Yeah. And it sounds great. Now, do you have, well, a couple questions.
Sure.
How does it get paid for, and do you have bipartisan support on this? You'd think you would.
Yeah, the education bill passed the House floor yesterday with 11 Democrat votes as well as the GOP. So we have good bipartisan support. I've talked to many colleagues out in the rural areas, Republican and Democrats, and they certainly see the need to get accessibility to these students. So we know that it's going to make a difference, and I'm excited to see it deployed. It'll be a grant program for school districts to apply to get these wireless hotspots, and then they can send these home with their kids.
Okay. And back to the issue of how it gets paid for.
Sure.
So where is it general fund money? Or?
Correct. We reallocated $54 million in the education bill, and of that $54 million that recaptured on the House side, $7 million of that will go to these mobile hotspot innovative grants.
Okay. Representative Kresha, can you talk a little bit practically, how does it work?
Sure. So we started out with the rural initiative that we know we have these very sparse areas where wireless access is the only way we're going to get to these homes. But we also know in the metro area we have many low-income families that just simply can't afford it. And so I've had many conversations around the state with families that are trying to bridge this gap. Maybe they're using their telephone as a hotspot and they're going to run into their data caps. We're going to eliminate that now. So these schools will be able to apply for these grant funds. They'll be able to purchase the mobile hotspots and work with wireless providers and then deploy these to students that have low accessibility at home.
Okay. So the kid would go home with a device.
Correct.
Like a mobile, like a little hotspot device or whatever, and they would connect through the cell tower technology?
That's correct. Right. So it's all wireless. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of these homes where there's no wired line accessibility, they're actually using their phone, they're bringing their smartphone in, and they're turning that on as a hotspot. Yeah. And the problem is now you've got mom, dad, multiple of kids all running off of that. Well, mom and dad are probably using it for work or other things, and so they're running into these data caps. And this will take that away. It'll be filtered. It'll use the school's filtering technology, so it'll be curriculum content only allowed, and it really gives the students the ability to catch up.
Okay. Yeah, and then, maybe, I'm not sure if you have a comment on this or not, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Sure.
The idea that, we've seen many attempts in legislation at like creating a two-tiered highway system where they can throttle your bandwidth down and things like that. Yep. Do you have a position on that, or what are your thoughts around that as it relates to this, your initiatives here?
Well, and what you're talking about with the tiered system, the FCC is dealing with that with net neutrality, and certainly there's lots of issues there. Understand all those issues, but here's the real rub. We have got in the House, I've got a couple of different bills. One of them is telecommunications reform that's going to allow basically a re-regulation of the telephone companies and the cable companies and the digital providers, because they're operating at different sets of rules. So part of why we run into the multi-tiered system is because we have different levels of regulation, and we have different ways to get digital content or phone service or cable TV to these providers or to these homes. We need to just level that playing field and let the consumer choose which is going to be the best.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a little bit like the position that Comcast and other companies have taken. And so you're, I assume, supporting their positions on this pay for play sort of tiered.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm supporting any. Let me back up. Let me do it this way. I come from a world where I had an online learning company. And the reason we had our company's success in Little Falls, Minnesota was we had open access to the internet. So I don't want to say I'm supporting FCC or I'm supporting Comcast or anything. My support is this: an entrepreneur should be able to hop on and get the bandwidth they need to do their service of business. If they need to pay for higher service, as we did, we had to upgrade from our coax cable connection to a fiber. That's going to be a business choice. I don't know that having the FCC create tiered approach is going to be the right approach.
Okay. Yeah, I was interested because I saw I saw some of the bills pass through, and I saw your name there, and I thought you might have an opinion on it.
I guess the one thing that I would add is this is an incredibly complicated, whether you're dealing with reform or you're dealing with grant programs or accessibility, and I think there's only a handful of legislators down here that really have dug into it to the level of actually getting bills to a point where we can make a difference, because once you get into this world, you can quickly get in the deep end of the pool very, very quickly.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, good. And so on the Education Finance Committee, which you're the chair, tell me a little. Vice chair. Okay,
I'd love
thank
to
you.
be chair, but
Sure. All right. Well, you know, you ever watch like House of Cards or anything? Because there's ways to get to be the chair.
I mean, Chair Loon does a great job, and I would only say that tongue in cheek. I love being her vice chair.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about what's going on in that committee and some of the action pending, because what are we at, like 3.5 weeks left or something? It's pretty short.
Right. So we passed the education finance bill off the House floor yesterday. Very good bill. And Chair Loon has done a fantastic job. So not only were we able to deal with teacher shortages, we were also to deal with student discipline issues. We're dealing with some testing. We also combined it with the higher ed, and we're looking at how we can put some possible study groups in for loan programs, loan forgiveness programs. There was just a lot of good pieces in that ed finance bill. We have a focus on early learning. We weren't able to allocate any money to it, but we do have some policy there, and really trying to get to the students from that 0 to 5 range. So just a lot of good things in that bill. And then, of course, my telecommunications piece, the $7 million for the mobile hotspots.
Tell me a little bit about the first two. A little bit more on the discipline stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we want to do is be very cognizant of our teacher safety. And the world has changed a lot for teachers, and as you see in St. Paul here, we've had some incidents where there's been some teachers that have had some physical violence. And so we need to make sure that the administration and the teachers are coming together, they're finding out good policies, but more importantly, we want to make sure those teachers are safe, and we want to know that they have policies to protect them if something should go bad. And then the second issue was on...
teacher shortages. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we've allocated some money to start looking at better ways to train some of these teachers. We hear this all over the state. How do we get teachers in? We've looked at, there's an OLA report on the Board of Teaching, and they need to redo some of their licensures because they're choking off some possible applicants in their processes. And we really need to have some incentives to get some teachers back into the classroom. It's a huge, huge problem. We've addressed the diversity issue as well. We hear about this a lot, matching teachers with students in in a cultural diverse way. And it's just becoming very, very challenging to get a good teacher in front of students because of the high need.
Okay, so I know they had alternative licensure was proposed. Yeah. It seems to come up in a lot of sessions, but being able to put teachers who've got, industry knowledge and a 4-year degree to work as a teacher maybe, are those ideas still being talked about?
Yes, and I think the heart of the issue here, I go back to my teaching days, you don't become a good teacher by reading a book or pick a curriculum together. It's life experience. It's relating to the kids and actually being able to connect with the kids. And I think sometimes our teacher licensure program is a checklist of, if you meet this criteria, we're going to put you in front of kids. But the reality is we need to find folks that have passion. We need to find people that are going to come from all walks of life to get in front of a group of kids and not just say, hey, we're going to walk through the curriculum, I'm going to hand you a test. Yeah. It's going to be more about, let's make you grow as a student, and let's make you a thoughtful learner, and all of those things, knowing that these kids come from very, very diverse backgrounds. And I don't know that government can do that well, but what we can do is try to get the word out and incentivize people that really need to get into these classrooms.
And just to your point there about the kids being able to, you getting engaged with the kids and stuff, what about alternative teaching tracks that are being looked at in other parts of the state or nation and out of the country, like apprenticing as a teacher, like you would an electrician? If you're good at it, you get the job. And how about teaching to tests? What are you doing about that?
So we don't have, I don't think we have anything in this bill specifically teaching to the test, but I'll go back to the licensure. Somehow, some way, and I don't know that the state government can fix this, we have to find good people in society and get them in front of kids. Whether that's an apprenticeship program, an internship. Maybe we've seen some programs in the past where you go out and you find community experts and you bring them in the areas of agriculture, maybe welding. I mean, you go down to the auto mechanics, your local mechanics, those are probably your best teachers. Yeah. And we need to find a way to get those into the classroom, not get them through a college course and then into the classroom, but get them into the classroom first and figure out what academic gaps they may have. It's really, really hard, because when I go back, when I started teaching in the early 90s, we were doing this because we enjoyed the kids, we enjoyed the coaching. It was just a great way of life. I don't know that that's changed. It's just we have less people that really want to get into this profession. So that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're graduating generations of people that are good at taking tests, but maybe don't have the practical knowledge to apply, or the critical thinking.
And I think this is a problem not just for education. I see this across the board here at the legislature, that we have a customer service or a people problem. We're graduating lots and lots of kids that want to work in science, technology, or they want to code. We hear all this, hey, we need to have the best coders in the world, but we've got seniors that need to be taken care of. We've got kids that need to be taught. We have a shortage in nursing. We have a healthcare problem. It seems like the adage of taking care of our own is becoming second to, I'd rather write the next great Flappy Birds app or the next, the next smartphone app. And I just think we're losing that cultural heritage of how do we take care of our own? How do we help each other out? Because we've got some huge people needs.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Republican priorities for the rest of the session now. With the short time you've got left, I saw some proposals back and forth. The governor's already, you've already looked at his, had a good chance to review what I think, what the governor would like. What's the GOP position right now?
So
with the time that's left.
Right, we've got tomorrow we take the jobs bill up, and jobs, energy, agriculture, and environment, I think are the pieces that we're wrapping together, and we've got some more broadband money there. We need to take care of the unserved and the underserved areas and bridge that digital divide. And we've got some energy policies there, but we'll see where that goes. In all of that, what we really need to do is get this bill through, as well as get a bonding bill through, and then get some reconciliation on the taxes and transportation. I think if you were to ask the Republican caucus what they want to do, let's get our tax bill done, let's get a transportation bill, let's figure out where we are in bonding, and then let's go have a good summer.
Well, let me ask you about that, because Democrats have challenged Republicans on the idea of using general fund money for some of these projects, roads and bridges and stuff, which, according to Rep. Hausman, is unprecedented. I mean, we've always just used the normal streams of revenue for that. What do you make of those assertions, and how do you respond?
At the end of the day, it's all taxpayer dollars. The money's coming from the taxpayers. We're putting it in different pockets. If you want to say the money that's in the cookie jar we shouldn't be using for this, but the money in the envelope we should be using for that, I think that's just political rhetoric. The fact of the matter is all this money is coming from the taxpayers. we have to figure out a way to put it into a budget and use it. The general fund is as viable stream of money as anything right now. We have it. We should use it. In years then we don't have it, we have to be a little bit more cognizant of our fiscal responsibilities. But we have it right now. We have a $900 million surplus, and we have a roads and bridges problem. To me, you have a problem, you have a solution. Let's match them together.
Okay. Well, let me challenge you a little bit on
Sure.
that. You've got almost $1 billion surplus, but you got $4.2 billion in requests, and then it's never been done before. So according to our research, they've never taken from the general fund to do this. So why haven't they done that in the past if it's all just borrowing from Peter to pay Paul?
So are you talking the bonding bill or transportation?
Talking about taking general fund money and applying it towards Republican priorities, rather than the normal streams of revenue in a bonding year.
Okay.
Like a gas tax, et cetera.
Oh, gotcha.
So the Republicans don't want to raise a gas tax, but they're okay with taking general fund money.
Sure.
That was their.
So the argument is the Republicans don't want to raise a gas tax. Let's be clear. We had a vote on the House floor last year, not one vote for the gas tax. It's not that the Republicans don't want to raise the gas tax. It's that the people in Minnesota have spoke loud and clear, especially out in rural Minnesota. We don't want a gas tax. You've got money, you've got surplus. We sent you down there to figure out the budget. Please do. So, I think what we're doing and the right approach is we're taking what we have, the tools we have available. Let's position those in a way that can solve taxes, transportation, and bonding, and come up with a solution. Next year will be a budget year, and depending on who they send down here, they'll have a different set of problems and a different set of ways to deal with that. But right now we have, as you said, a $900 million surplus. We've got a $600 million bonding bill, and I think combined together we can figure out a way that's reasonable without doing what the people have asked, which is not raise the gas tax.
Okay, fair enough. And is there anything else on the Republican agenda regarding non-bonding issues that you think are going to be a priority here in the last 3 weeks?
Well, we're going to see a set of bills that come through for all different things, just cleanup bills, but a couple of things that are near and dear to my heart. One of them is hoping next week, I think we have it scheduled, is the Child Protection Task Force. It's something the Republicans have led on. We've had great bipartisan support with the Senate. And really what we're trying to do is figure out the best way to clean up our child maltreatment statutes, as well as making sure that those early learners and those kids in those disadvantaged homes are getting the best foot forward so that they can be successful. So that's a bill that we'll see. We'll also see some foster care training around fetal alcohol syndrome. So those are a couple bills that I have. And then, we don't have to do a whole lot more because, again, it's a non-budget. And I think if we can just focus on those priorities, let's get the taxes, transportation, bonding done, get agreement with the Senate, get the governor to sign them, and go home, and then let the people decide who's coming back in November. That's a good way to get through.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of campaign speeches on the House floor that never happens, does it? Well, so you're speaking of which, you've announced that you're going to seek a third term here. What makes you want to come back?
I think I still have some unfinished business. The early learning scholarships that I've been promoting, as well as the foster care and maltreatment, those are two areas that are near and dear to my heart. I just think we have a lot more work to do. We have a foster care system right now that is underpaying providers, and we're seeing foster care parents leave the system. So what we've got is this tremendous time of need where students and kids are being placed out of their homes because of neglect and maltreatment, and we've got a foster care system that can't accommodate them. That's a problem because those kids are falling in the gaps. They're falling into homeless shelters, and in a civilized society that we live in, that just shouldn't be the case. That should not be happening. So those are some priorities that I need to come back and keep addressing.
Okay. All right, we'll wrap up here with a little segment we like to do where you call a opposition colleague out for something good. So often the case is up here that, we trade barbs with, you guys trade barbs with each other and, calling out for bad things. Is there a colleague on the Democrat side that you can think of that you enjoy working with, respect?
Sure.
Some things going there.
Can it be House or Senate? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Well, I think my colleague on the child protection issue, Senator Kathy Sharon, her and I have really worked hard on this and have actually passed some great reforms in that. So she's been one of the colleagues. At the end of the day, there's actually quite a few of them. I have a handful that I could name. Because in order to really get good legislation done down here, both sides have to come together. And I know some of my legislation has gotten much, much better just by talking to colleagues on the other side saying, how do we get to a place that we can all agree, or what's the right thing to do? So I appreciate the question, but I'm happy to call out Senator Sharon, and we work closely, and I know she's retiring. So
Yeah. Well, and so often is the case here. The stories are different, but
right.
Yeah, and people don't hear enough about the good work that goes on between Democrats, Republicans, and others. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.
Wonderful.
You being with us. So that's it from the Capitol. We'll see you next week on Minnesota Capitol News.